Yes, lads, what is going on? And welcome to Season 3, Episode 19 of The Running Irishman. In this episode, we have another very, very, very special guest. We have Ari Klau, who you might know from featuring in a good few episodes of the Athlete Special vlogs. Ari and I talk a little bit about his early days in running. We talk about his time with Spencer and in the Athlete Special YouTube channel. We talk about his transition to becoming a full-time triathlete, quitting his job, and the current lifestyle he is living, being a full-time triathlete, a full-time YouTuber, and kind of what life is like from now at the moment. So really, really looking forward for all you guys to give this episode a listen. It was a really, really great episode. Ari is such a really, really sound guy. As sound as he seemed in the Athlete Special videos, as sound as he seems in his own YouTube channel that has recently blown up. All links for Ari's socials are down in the description below. If you're interested in him, running, swimming, biking, or just triathlon in general, make sure to check out both his YouTube and Instagram. Few things before we head into this episode of the podcast. The first one is the song you are hearing in the background at the moment is actually from an aunt of mine who is now, creating music herself and is kind of going full time with it. And she recently had the song that's playing in the background on the radio over here in Ireland. So she's doing big things and getting her name and her music out there. So I just said I'd try give her a bit of a hand. All the links to her Spotify and SoundCloud are down in the description below if you want to go out and give them a listen just to help support her as much as you can. The song that's playing in the background will be fully played through, non-interrupted at the end of this episode. So make sure to give it a full listen there. And if you're interested into her music, make sure to click the Spotify link down in the description below to listen to. I think she has 2 other songs out. So if you can get a hold of them, make sure to check them out. I'm sure it'd be really, really, really appreciated. One last thing is this episode of the podcast was streamed over on twitch.tv/TheRunningIrishman 1. I stream all my episodes of the podcast with guests, without guests over there. If you want to interact with me, interact with the guests, ask questions, and just be, just listen or watch the podcast early before it goes live, you can do so. Again, link is down in the description below, so make sure to check out that. And that's pretty much it from me. Obviously I haven't posted a Sunday episode last week because nothing major did happen this Sunday at 9pm. This going out on Friday at 6pm, on Sunday coming at 9pm. I will be live again on twitch.tv/TheRunningIrishman 1. Again, links are down in the description. Talking about some things that happened in last week's training. This week's training, I think I might be hitting my highest ever mileage this week. I'm not too sure, won't jump the gun yet. And a little bit more about getting back with the team, so make sure to stay tuned, subscribe, turn the notification bell on to be notified on future episodes of the podcast and videos do go live. If you listen to the podcast, head over to the runningirishman.official Instagram, linked again down in the description below to stay tuned for when future episodes of the podcast go live. That's enough from me rambling on. I hope you guys enjoy, and let's get into this episode of the podcast with Ari Klau. Again, Ari, sorry if I'm butchering your name. Yes, lads, so we're here with Ari Klau. Thank you very much, Ari, for taking the time to come on the podcast. Obviously, I don't want to, mention it too much as this is your episode of the podcast, but never did I think seeing you in the Athlete Special videos and absolutely ripping up those runs and sessions that I see you doing in Spencer Brown's vlogs. Did I ever think I'd have you on the podcast? But it's a real privilege to have you on, and I doubt I'll do you any justice. Would you like to just real quick give a little bit of an introduction and a rundown about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. It changes pretty much every month. But one, thank you for having me on. And so I guess I am a triathlete. I feel like I've been swimming enough, and most importantly, I have a speedo tan. So I feel like I can call myself a swimmer and a biker and a runner. And I have competed in one. It was a little bit of a local, not very competitive triathlon, but I competed and I won it. So I will now begin to call myself a triathlete. Former I was never professional, never got paid to run, but I was a collegiate runner. And after my collegiate career was done, it was cut short because of COVID. But after that, I was a full-time software engineer, trying to still chase the dream of becoming a professional runner. And there were a lot of twists and turns along the way that I'm sure we'll talk about. But now here I am in Tucson, Arizona for the time being, just trying to become a professional triathlete.
Yeah, definitely. And as of recently enough, your career with running and your career in the triathlete and your relationship with both of those events has really, been kind of all up in the air. But for the moment, we kind of just bring it back to the start, just so we get a bit of a foundation to build off, in a sense. So obviously, we know from the athlete special videos, you were quite a talented runner. So we're just gonna bring it back to the start, kind of to your roots. You were starting off in running. How did you get into it, and where were you running?
Um, so the story here is a little bit interesting because I almost didn't join the cross country team at my high school. There's a Thanksgiving Day road race, a 5 mile road race, near my town where I grew up. It's actually one of the two biggest Thanksgiving Day road races. And here in U.S., that's like a big tradition, is everyone does pretty much a road race on Thanksgiving Day. So this one has like 15,000 people. It's a big event. People, go jog it, walk it. And then there's also a very competitive elite field. But when I was in middle school, so age 10 to 13, 14, my grandpa, my aunts and uncles, they would all go walk it. And so I think when I was 10 was the first time I basically got the invite, and it was horrible weather. It was freezing. It was rain. And it took me probably an hour and a half to like walk this 5 mile course with my family. But then I went back and did it for the next couple of years. And what would always happen is, like, I wasn't training, I wasn't running at all. I would just go run run walk. I don't even know if I ran the whole thing at times, but I would just do everything I could to complete this 5 mile road race. And usually I would throw up, and I was like so ridiculously sore for a couple days afterwards. So when I got to high school, my parents were like, if you're going to do this road race every year, you might as well join the cross country team. And this was like 2 weeks after sports had started. So it's a good thing it was pretty relaxed. I was able to just sort of join the team 2 weeks late. But I wasn't really even thinking about it. It was something my parents suggested, and I sort of almost missed the deadline. And I was just doing it so that I would basically be in better shape for this Thanksgiving Day road race. That was kind of my whole thought. So that's how I got started with organized distance running in high school.
Cool, cool. So, yeah, obviously you started off pretty, just average, just doing your run every single year. But then, as you kind of started getting on into your training, even just for this road race, when you joined the cross country team within your school, did you kind of see natural progression quite quickly? Did you kind of have the natural talent that maybe wasn't looked into before you joined the cross country team?
No, so I was terrible. And this, to all the other 26-minute 5Kers out there, um, it's a fairly slow time. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But that's what I was running. I ran 25:38 in my first 5K. And I was running kind of around there for the whole season. And then I had a massive breakthrough, I guess by any standard. I went under 21 in my last 5K of the season. So I was a 20:55 5K runner. Whereas most kids who are, what you would say talented, most kids who go on to run in college and professionally are running, probably 17 minutes, maybe 18 minutes, maybe 16 the first time they step on the cross country course. So I was, by any standard, not talented, but obviously I took, almost 5 minutes off in that one season, and then the progression just kept going. And I was able to get under, I think I ran about 4:45 in the mile by the end of that year, by the end of my freshman year, which was like, and pretty solid. Again, most of those kids who are running 17-minute 5Ks when they sort of step on the course, that my college teammates even they ran 4:20 in the mile as freshmen. So they sort of just step on the track and they're really good right away. It took me a little bit longer to get there, but I always I just had this belief that I was going to be good, just because I knew I was going to sort of outwork everybody else, and in the sort of um, hierarchy on my cross country team. Like I was moving up it so quick that I was like, oh, I'm just going to keep working this hard and I'm going to be the best runner on the team in no time. And that is kind of how it ended up happening. But to answer the original question, there was very little natural talent there, or at least off the bat. Obviously there's talent, but it took a little bit for it to come into the fold.
Yeah, definitely. And kind of like, I know where you're coming from in a sense where like having the natural talent and seeing these people just step onto the track and being really, really good. And then you there kind of working as hard as you can. But, these people just coming along and seeing progress straight away. Was that kind of demotivating for you? Did it ever throw you off course a little bit to be like, oh, maybe I'm not good enough to do this? Or, were you just still getting the training in for your yearly 5K and not worrying about anyone else?
Yeah, no, my mindset was always like I'd see, I would always compare myself to people in my class for the most part. I don't know if you're familiar with Alex Osberg. So he ran at Stanford and he's running at University of North Carolina right now. He just this phenomenal talent. I think he's run under 13:40 in the 5K, but he was just 5K. I think he won the 5K his junior year in our high school national championship, and just he blew everyone out of the water. But so he was also from Connecticut, and as high school went on, I just always got my butt kicked by him. But I was sort of looking at what he was doing as a freshman, and he was way faster. Uh, but I always told myself like I'm working harder than he is. I'm working harder than everybody else. Like I'm going to get there. And I never. It was more motivating, I'd say, when I would see someone run really fast, because I just had this like brash confidence in my head that I was just going to get there one way or another.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really, good mentality and mindset to have when you're working hard but not maybe seeing the results like other people. Kind of that motivating you in a way is refreshing, and you don't always hear that, so it's really, really good to hear. And then you mentioned you attended the University of Virginia. Then in your collegiate years, going to the University of Virginia, was that on a scholarship? Did you go there to run, or was that just basically all for academics?
Well, it's a bit of a mix. So I was not on any scholarship for my 4 years of undergrad, and that's the case for a lot of people in this country. Is that you just end up paying a lot to go run at a university, especially because UVA was like a step above. The runners there were really good, and so for me to just be on the team was huge. And that was sort of my goal, was to surround myself with a lot of people who were way better than me. And that would force me to get better. So I got in, like I was accepted to the school basically because for athletics, but I wasn't on any sort of scholarship. And it also is a great like academic institution. So that was definitely a plus for me and for the rest of my family, for in terms of the comfort of me going there versus somewhere that's like a really good distance running program, but that isn't a great school. Um, but yeah, so there was no scholarship for the first 4 years. It was just I wanted to go there because I knew that there were really good runners there, and I really liked the coach. And I just felt that it was a place that I was going to be able to work hard and keep improving.
Yeah, definitely. And kind of, in terms of running, you were saying to me there off air over on Instagram that you kind of had a few inconsistent years. You're picking up a few injuries here and there. Bagging 100 plus mile weeks, having some really good sessions, but then kind of getting picking up injuries and again being kind of inconsistent. So kind of in terms of the injuries, like what was that like? What kind of injuries were they, and kind of how was it affecting you? Kind of obviously injuries are obviously painful in terms of where they're located on your body, but mentally not being able to run, what was that like for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was my first pretty much 2 years of college were just marred by injuries. And it was certainly my own fault. There were lessons that I had to learn the hard way that I'm now trying to keep in mind in this journey into triathlon. But what it was is I got to college and I was like, okay, this is the big leagues now. I have to train as hard as I can. And so instead of having a pretty, I was running fairly high mileage in high school. I would run 80 miles a week in high school. The workouts weren't nearly as intense, but once I got to UVA, I was like, okay, I just have to start running 100 miles a week and doing these crazy hard sessions, and that's how I'm going to make it to the next level. I wasn't really thinking about just being super consistent and staying healthy over a long period. It was very short sighted. Let's just train as hard as I can, and then it'll pay off. And it took me 2 years to learn. So the first one was, well, honestly, I didn't always get like a physical injury. What would happen to me a lot of the time is I would just run myself sort of into the ground. So my first fall at UVA, I think I made it through like late October to early November. I wasn't racing; I was just training, and I just uh, I was just tired, overtrained. It wasn't like overtraining syndrome necessarily, the kind of thing that takes months to recover from, but I had run myself into the ground, and that was sort of the end of the season there. Um, and then I got a stress reaction that winter. I was just building up way too quickly, coming off of a break after that fall. Built up the mileage too quickly, built up the intensity in the workouts too quickly, and broke my foot. And that was when you talk about like the mental side, a stress fracture for me was something I couldn't even imagine. And I now know it's something that happens to a lot of athletes. You just have to take it in stride. You end up missing several weeks. You have to cross train. But for me, I was like, okay, it's like my career is over. I couldn't imagine missing, a month plus of running. Um, but so that was like a really sharp down. And then I was cross training my ass off. Came back that spring, and I was actually able to get pretty fit again. But again, building up too quickly, workouts were a bit too intense, and really aggravated my Achilles. That just didn't go away for almost 3 months. So I wasn't completely off there, but it was just like every time I would run, I was just kind of waiting for my Achilles to start hurting, wondering how long I'd be able to make it. And then I was dealing with that for pretty much the entirety of the next cross country season. So now we're already into year 2 of my running career or in college. And then again, it sort of blew up in my knee that forced me to take, I think it was 3 or 4 more weeks off after that. So it was just like constantly running again, getting pretty fit, and then building up too quick, and then having some sort of injury. And then by the end of my second year, I was actually healthy, but my mental health by that point was just in such poor condition. It was like, something I had neglected throughout all of these injuries, these ups and downs, that I would line up on the line for a race and just like waiting for when it would be over. Just thinking like, I don't want to be here. And it's pretty much impossible to race well when that's how you're thinking on the line. So finally, after that, after a whole bunch of physical and some pretty bad mental injuries, I took 3 weeks completely off and didn't put any pressure on myself to run. I was like, I might never run again if I don't feel like it. I figured I would want to start running again after a couple of weeks, which is what happened. But that's when I sort of realized that that was a cycle that I really didn't want to have go any longer. So I just dropped my mileage to something that felt sustainable for me. That was in the mid 70s to low 80s. That was something I was able to do consistently and hit good workouts on. And I just kept it there for pretty much the next year, and was able to stay completely healthy. So yeah, I mean, it was 2 years where by the end of those 2 years, I pretty much felt like I was not any better as going into my junior year in college as I was as a senior in high school. So yeah, just, a cycle of injuries, a lot of lessons that I had to learn the wrong way. But I am thankful that I learned them, because now I know from experience that, especially with regards to triathlon, it's about consistency over many years. I don't need to be crushing huge yards in the pool, or hours on the bike, or miles on the run, because that's very short sighted. So now I'm kind of thinking years ahead, and that's something I wish I had done right when I got to college, instead of essentially wasting 2 years.
Yeah, definitely. Was there ever kind of like a point where you had your stress fracture in your foot, and you'd done your knee in, and you were just as you mentioned, you were kind of being real inconsistent, and obviously injuries, which is looked over in terms of talking about them, is the actual pain that it inflicts on people. Was there ever a time, because of that pain, and obviously kind of the psychological part of it, where you weren't running, was there ever a time where you were kind of maybe afraid, in a sense, to go back to running, in a sense that you were afraid to get injured again, and you were afraid to be, not want to be in the place where you wanted to be in terms of your running? Or when you were injured, was it all you could think about was just wanting to get back?
Yeah, no, it was a little bit of both. I think at the beginning, the first couple injuries, it was, all right, let's get past this and let's get back on the horse. And then once I realized I was in a cycle, that, my mindset and my approach to returning to training after an injury was causing me to get injured again. Before I sort of understood what was happening, yeah, there was definitely the fear of, what if this is just what my career is like? It's constantly marred by injuries, and I'm never able to get back to that fitness. But the hard truth is that that's possible. I now know that that's not the kind of body I have, but some people are just extremely fragile. It's really hard to stay healthy. And yeah, people just have to battle through injuries pretty constantly. And that was a fear I had, is that, what if I can never run with a consistent 3, 6, maybe a 12-month span of good health. But it sort of forced me to let go and say, look, if I do love this sport, that's something that's a worry that I sort of have to accept as part of it, and keep rolling with the punches. But once you sort of accept that you don't have any control over the situation, I think it made me a lot more comfortable to just say, look, I'm going to step out the door today and I'm going to do what I can. And if, hopefully I stay healthy, hopefully I'm smart about it. And if I do get injured, then that's just something I have to deal with. It's a part of the sport. But after that point, I enjoyed a pretty much uninterrupted 3-year spell of really good health.
Yeah, definitely, and we definitely see that in kind of, would you say maybe a breakthrough even in your fifth year of college, in the sense, even before everything got cancelled, due to COVID, where you end up running like a 7:51. You mentioned there, like, you felt like, due to a lot of the injuries and a lot of the time you spent outside and not running, you felt like, your senior year of high school, and then the few years within college, you didn't make any progress. But then, kind of getting that, would you even say, little breakthrough in terms of your own running, and running that, 7:51, did your mind kind of, did you kind of, your thought process kind of shift in a way that, like, okay, I've had these injuries, but now that I'm fit and healthy, this is actually how fast I can run?
Yeah, definitely a little bit. So once it wasn't all smooth once I, figured out how to stay healthy. So I was going into my junior year of college, and from then on, for the next 2 years, or next 3 years, I had no significant injuries. Really didn't have to take much time off at all. And I had this very long term, how much medium effort training, let's say, can I fit in for the next several years? Because, if I just do it for 3 years straight, that's what's going to have a bigger impact than, 100 miles a week for 3 months. Um, but I think I was still training just a little bit too hard, and my mindset was, I'm just going to train really hard, and I'm going to be so fit that when I line up to race, it's just going to happen like that. I'm just going to race well. And I was always maybe a little bit on the tired side when I lined up to race. And then I was also mentally just not ready for it, because I was always relying on fitness. I was like, oh, I need to go back and train some more, instead of having that killer instinct and saying, well, I'm just going to race with the fitness that I have and actually see how fit I am. So it was both just slight overtraining for the next 2 years, and then also just figuring out how to race, because it's such a mental game. So I finally started to figure that out after cross country in my 5th year. It was just another case of the same thing. I had trained, maybe harder and more consistently than I ever had that summer leading into the fall, and I still just had very lackluster performances. So once I got to indoor, I was like, okay, I'm just going to basically cash in on the 2.5 years of really good training, and I'm just going to I'm not going to crush any workouts. I'm just going to put the day, check the days off, check the boxes, and then I'm going to show up to race, and that's where it's all going to happen. And so when I finally got on the line, I was fresh. I wasn't overtraining, and I was there with like, let's race mindset instead of let's just depend on all this fitness that I've built up. So I really started to figure out how to train, like how to not overstep that line, and then also just how to keep myself in the race and how to compete, which is something I just hadn't quite gotten before. And that's something I'm still learning. At 7:51, I think, was a breakthrough. I put myself, I won the race, which was probably the bigger breakthrough for me, rather than just running fast, because it means I was competing. But before then, because of all those inconsistencies in races, I started to question whether I had what it took to be a pro runner. And obviously, you need to run fast enough to get a contract. And I was getting to the point where I was ready to give it up, running competitively. I love training, and I was always going to keep on training. But I sort of just stopped believing that I had what it took to be a professional runner. And then, that 7:51 sort of shifted it. And it was like, oh, okay, no, I can do this. And completely shifted my outlook on what, the next year of my life was going to look like. That maybe I could still be really, really good, be a pro runner, instead of just, being a software engineer, which was sort of my plan at that point.
Yeah, and we kind of saw that, when you withdrew from your graduate program and gone full-time software engineer was after your 5th year of college, obviously, because a lot of things were cancelled then due to COVID. Like, when you done that, obviously you mentioned there they kind of had a shift in mindset, in the sense where before you were thinking, because of all the injuries and little setbacks you didn't think basically you had what it took to go pro. But then this 7:51 and winning that race kind of shifted your mindset. So when you went full time as a software engineer, were you still, fully committing to running, training every day, or kind of where were your priorities set?
Yeah. So once it's actually interesting. COVID, in a way, sort of, I won't say it like saved me, but I was getting to a point where I was pretty unhappy. I was doing a master's in computer science, which was, if you're doing a graduate program in a STEM field, that's really, really hard. And most of the people who were in my program, they were master's students and PhD students who, like, they're dedicating their lives to sort of the pursuit of knowledge in this academic field. And I was just there trying to do my classes and dedicate most of my time to running still, which it's hard enough in undergrad, but it was just a different level of, like, academic intensity. So I was just unhappy with it, and I was also feeling a bit like restricted with the NCAA. I know I'm not the only athlete that has gone through the NCAA who feels that way, and I even said it to my coaches. I was like, I'm starting to not believe that being in the NCAA is the best thing for me anymore. And so I was able to actually test that out. Everything got canceled. And I withdrew from the program, took a full-time job. And my whole mindset was, this job is just to support me while I'm still trying to earn a pro contract. I know that a pro contract is going to be a lot less money than I'm making as a software engineer, but I don't care. This is just to try to bridge me across. And I would wake up, pretty early, get in a good run before work, and then after work, run again or do a workout, whatever it was. I was running twice a day most days. And yeah, it was like most of my mental energy was going to training, and I was getting really, really fit. After, I guess everything got canceled in March. So half of March, April and May, I was just working and training. And then I had all this fitness and there were no races. So I did a time trial. I had a pacer for the first 1,000 meters, but it was just me and the pacer. And I ran 4:01, and I'm not a miler. I
Yeah.
would rather have run a 5K, but I was like, well, if I'm time trialing this, it's a lot easier to run a good mile than it is to run a good 5K by yourself. So that was the thinking there. But me running 4:01 told me, I'm in 13:35 shape right now. Probably the same or better shape than I was when I ran 7:51. And so that also confirmed to me that not only was I right about the way I felt about the NCAA, that I'd sort of outgrown it and I was ready to be an adult and do it on my own, but also that I can be a pro runner. I know 4:01 is still in the very low tier. No one's getting a contract for running a 4:01, but that told me that I had a really good 5K and 10K sort of sitting there. But yeah, I mean, that's what it was. And running 4:01 with a full-time job was also sort of a confidence boost that it was sustainable, that even if I wasn't able to earn a contract, that I could still be a professional runner, training full time while also working full time.
Yeah, 100%. I understand that, but then I remember, listening in a previous podcast that you were in, that kind of skipping forward a little bit just for a moment, you kind of came to the point where within your job as a software engineer, when you really kind of started wanting to knuckle down. I'm not sure if I remember, this was during the time of the triathlon, your career in the triathlon, or if you were still running at this time, but it just came in a point in your full time job where it was like you just didn't want to do it anymore. And it wasn't even just a case of you just want to run, it was also just a case of you didn't want to, being a software engineer at that time just kind of wasn't for you. So at the time when you left your job, kind of, were you kind of nervous in a sense where you didn't know maybe where your next check will come into the door, where you'll be paid next, where you kind of, to kind of fund yourself in a way for whatever was running, being a triathlete? Or were you just like fully committed, like you didn't want to be in that job and now you just want to fully commit on being a professional athlete? So kind of taking that leap, was it a scary one in a sense?
Well, yes to both of those. There was the anxiety over not having a consistent paycheck anymore. But yeah, you hit it right on the head there. I did not want to be a software engineer anymore. And a lot of that, I think, was thinking about what my alternatives were. When I took the job initially, it felt like it was the best case scenario. I was making money and I was able to run. But then around the time that I left the job, I had the YouTube channel that was growing, and I was making, I wasn't making much money from it at all, from ad revenue, but I was making a little bit, and it was like more every week with the way it was growing. And so all of a sudden, my perception of what my alternatives were changed, because I thought, well, instead of working this full-time job, and by this point, I wasn't doing really triathlon training. I was just running and biking. But my perception of the alternative was now like I can't quite support myself on YouTube ad revenue, but it's not that far, and I have a lot of savings from this software engineering job. So I think it's possible for me to not do this anymore and just train, just wake up every morning and train all day. And so that was one of the things. As soon as I realized that there was a probably viable alternative, that's when I sort of would get on in the mornings, get on meetings. I'd be coding, and just be dreading it. I'd have a hard time getting through the tasks I was supposed to do because I felt that I was getting to a point where I was able to not be doing that. Versus before, when I thought it was the best case scenario, I was happy to get on these meetings and be doing the work because I didn't think there was another option. So it definitely was, I don't want to say scary, because I was well aware of, what the worst case scenario is, which is run out of money and then, go live with my parents for a little while and then try to get back on my feet, which that's not ideal, but it's not horrible. And my parents aren't going to bail me out, but they're not going to leave me on the streets. So that's not what you want to be doing as a 25-year-old living with your parents. But again, I was more than willing to take that risk as the absolute bottom, when the upside is, I can live my dream. So not not a ton of anxiety. I definitely attacked it head on. And I was like, okay, well, I'm doing this. It wasn't a super hard decision to make when I made it. But yeah, there's, I am not making much money. I don't know where the next paycheck is coming. I'm constantly doing the math of how many more months of rent and bills I can pay. But again, I've never been happier, because I'm doing what I love to do and I'm going after it, with every ounce of my being. And so if it ends tomorrow, I can live with that, because I didn't take anything for granted. And I know that at the very least, I went out there and I chased it.
Yeah, 100%. That's really, really great to hear. And kind of off topic in terms of running in a way for a sec, do you feel like, obviously you mentioned that you were making a lot more money as a software engineer than you would be as, getting a bit of money off ad revenue off YouTube, and different ways of different sorts of income coming in. But do you feel like being happy in what you're doing is better and more important to you personally than having a sustainable and a quite a solid income come in, every single month or every single week?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's priceless. It's completely priceless. You can't put a value on it. There's no paycheck that someone could offer me right now to pull me away from what I'm doing. Uh, it's like I don't see right now how my life could really be any better. Like, I could have better equipment. I could get a bike sponsor, and I could get a super, like, a $12,000 bike, whatever it is. Just be getting sent shoes, be getting sent sports nutrition, all that sort of stuff. But I wouldn't say that would increase my happiness at all, because the main thing is I'm able to just train. um, so yeah, I just don't see how it could get any better. And there's nothing else I'd rather be doing, and there's, like, money doesn't play into that at all.
Yeah, no, 100%. I couldn't agree more. I feel like doing what makes you happy is a lot more important too. Obviously, there's certain extent for everything. If you're in a huge crisis where you have no savings, no any kind of income coming in, maybe for a while you need to take time to build savings and then come back in the future for what for what you want to do. But if you're kind of in your situation where you kind of have that slight sustainability at the moment, and you're kind of well organized in what you want to do, it's just it's really great to see someone actually, who maybe isn't in the best position as some of these professional athletes, getting sent things, all the time, and getting, nice paychecks at each race. But it's good to see you kind of following your dream in a sense. So yeah, again, that's really refreshing to hear and to see. Kind of, I'm pretty sure taking it back a little bit, kind of bring the YouTube scene into things a bit more. When you move to Boulder with Spencer Brown, and you start training with the books. Kind of just in terms of YouTube, when you saw Spencer doing it initially, again from a previous podcast I heard you on, you know, you initially didn't want to just be, starting up YouTube then for the sake of it, just because you'd literally just be posting kind of what Spencer would be posting. You'd be doing the same workouts, the same long runs, it'd be the same, pretty much the same splits and whatnot each time. So kind of just be, copying in a sense. So kind of in terms of the YouTube scene, when you were introduced to it with Spencer, when the camera was kind of in your face a bit, what was your thoughts on that? Did you like it straight away? You were definitely a big character within the vlogs when you were with Spencer, which was really good to see. But kind of in terms of YouTube and the athlete special, what was your thought process with it initially?
Yeah, no, I loved it. As soon as the camera was on me, I just, I always felt like I was just talking to whoever was sort of behind the camera. I didn't really feel like I was changing anything. And yeah, it just sort of felt natural to be in a house where anything and everything could be or was filmed. And yeah, I just loved being a part of it. I never thought about starting my own channel, until probably a couple weeks before I did. I was just loving being a part of the athlete special. And like you said, like being a character, that's like I loved, just sort of. I was hoping that it would like add to his channel, like having all these different characters that he did in Boulder. And I sort of liked that. Um, I was able to sort of get some, social media exposure. Like the Instagram was getting really big. I was getting a lot of new followers, and a lot of people were commenting on the YouTube about me, which it was just fun to be a part of. But yeah, for all of Boulder, and for most of the time we were in Seattle, I was just very content to be a part of everything that Spencer was doing, and I wanted to be a part of it for longer and help him build it. Uh, but yeah, obviously things slowly changed, and one of them was just seeing what having a YouTube channel had done for his career made me think that I could that starting a channel might have a similar effect for me, which I now know, looking back a couple months later, it has completely changed my life. And I'm sure he would say a similar thing. That just choosing to start a channel and document and be open about your life, it just opens up so many doors that simply running fast uh, can't do. And then on the other hand, if you do run fast, it's like your platform is already that much bigger, that many more people know about it. Um, so, I mean, yeah, I just felt very natural on camera. I never had any qualms, sort of just like putting my life and my thoughts on the internet. I was very comfortable with it. Uh, and so I think, maybe other people feel like they don't have what it takes, or they just wouldn't want to have their lives be broadcast to however many thousands of people. But I liked it pretty, from day one.
Yeah, definitely. And nowadays, in any sport, yes, athletes are given professional contracts and sent out shoes and sent out clothes. So people might be like, oh, look, he's wearing these such and such. Just say Eliud Kipchoge's wearing the Nike Alpha Flies. I must wear them to try and run as fast as him, in a sense. Do you feel like, not even just with Spencer, kind of just with running and social media, not even as well with YouTube, just in general, having a social media platform is also becoming more of a way to pick up brand deals and pick up, sponsorships with shoe companies to get that professional contract? Do you think that obviously running fast and winning races is still probably is definitely the biggest way, and being a really really great runner is the biggest way of becoming a professional athlete? But do you see, and just the way you saw with Spencer, do you think that having a really big platform in today's day and age really can help maybe not the best runners out there really to pick up professional contracts?
Well, absolutely, and you have to think about it from the brand's perspective. I mean, distance running as a sport is pretty much owned by brands. It's mostly owned by shoe companies, and to get in the game, you need a shoe contract to support you while you train full time. And from their perspective, they want as many people to see you wearing their product as possible. And it used to be that, with the traditional news outlet, journalism reporting, I guess the way it was before social media took hold, it was just reporting on who was winning the races and who was running the fastest. There was no peek into the daily lives of the athletes. And so the best way to get your product out there was to put it on the best runners, because the best runners were getting the most press. And that is simply not the case anymore. The best runners are getting a lot of press, but it's mostly going to people who just understand social media and who can provide content that people want to watch. So like it doesn't really matter if you are the fastest. I would say there's almost just like a standard of you have to be pretty fast, but you have to be really interesting and you have to provide something that people want to keep clicking on and want to watch through. And Spencer was doing that. All the running YouTubers, and there's a lot of triathlon YouTube. I'm now discovering the endurance sports content creators were doing that, and they weren't all necessarily the best athletes, but now brands are seeing that they are reaching such a larger population, and it's still a targeted audience of endurance athletes who will buy their products. And I was saying, well, screw putting it on the best runners in a diamond league, because the diamond league doesn't even get as much press as putting it on 5 different YouTubers who are getting 50,000 views on every video. So from the brand's perspective, it doesn't matter how fast you are anymore. It's simply how much exposure can you provide with their product. So I mean, it sort of makes sense from a brand's perspective why they would want to start giving their products to content creators, just because that's what people see now.
Yeah, definitely. And with track and field kind of not getting as much, being on the telly as much as other sports, just like maybe football or American football over in America, you don't see the athletes as much wearing the brand. So it's kind of like people forget kind of who's even sponsored by who at the end of the day, until they kind of refresh themselves when the next race comes around, whenever that would be. But if you're kind of getting a daily insight to someone's life and seeing how well they're running, and then seeing that they're wearing a certain brand, is definitely going to draw more attention to that brand over a longer period of time. So definitely social media is becoming quite a big way for brands to pick up athletes that, as you said, have a good standard, but then also have a big following on top of that, to really share around their brand. And kind of staying on, the topic of the brands, when Spencer eventually then signed the contract with the Brooks Beast, you were kind of training in there as well with them at the time. And from the videos I was watching, like, you weren't it wasn't like you were, oh, he's not he's not the pro here, kind of, he's getting dropped in the sessions, he's not able for this. You were kind of training with Spencer as well for a long time, and you were really well able for it, and up there in a lot of the workouts and in the runs. Did you kind of feel there was a time where you thought, yeah, maybe I deserve a contract as well, just for how actually good you are, or were you just happy to be there training with the group?
A little bit of both. For one, it's important to note that most of the people in that group were 1,500. All of them can pretty much run 48 point or whatever for a 400. And so once you kind of step below 5K, like I wouldn't have a shot with them. So on the YouTube, when I was working out with them, it was fall training, it was base training, it was all tempo stuff, and that's where I excel. I have a comparative advantage to almost everyone in that group. So for basically any workout that I hopped in with them, I just didn't even find it that hard. But if I were to hop in to, like, let's say a Bowerman where it's 5K, 10K runners, like, I am going to get
Yeah.
dropped. So I think a lot of it was just the perception of how I was able to just hop into strength workouts with 1,500 runners. The optics of that just made me look a little bit better. I never confused that with the fact that because I'm able to work out with them, that I should be getting paid the same way they are, be on a contract at all. Because all of them had run really, really fast in the 1,500. And that's what they're getting paid for. They're not getting paid for their ability to crush a tempo, So I knew that I had the ability to, at some point, if I could just get the training in, and then when races start up again, I would be able to run fast enough that some sponsor would come my way. But yeah, I never really confused the fact that I was able to work out with them as me deserving a contract.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And no, I see where you come from, in the sense where, it was just base training in a sense at the end of the day, and it was kind of the longer stuff, as you said, the tempo work that you kind of would excel in. So it definitely kind of would have given you a boost in morale. Kind of, these are pro athletes, and you're well able to keep up with them. So that definitely could have helped you, as well as getting in some really, really good trainer. But then obviously, it kind of, I wouldn't even say took a turn for the worse because, in terms of your triathlon training and career now, it looks like kind of you're having the time of your life and living the dream in a sense, being able to train every single day and get better and better and better. But kind of just in terms of your body, because nobody wants to get injured, it kind of took a bad turn, and you end up picking up an injury and turning to the bike, the indoor bike. And so, talk a little bit about the injury, kind of what was it and your mental state at the time, because obviously you were still very invested into running at that time.
Yeah, so I had that injury, and I mentioned before I had pretty much 3 years of uninterrupted health. So it was like it had been a long time since I had to deal with that feeling of not being able to run, or when I'm trying to run, is it going to flare up? And so this one, it was pretty bad. It didn't really go away for a month. I was resting, and I'd sort of come back a little bit too quick. It was I'd run for 10 minutes, and it would blow up at the end. So it just, it needed a long rest to get better. So yeah, that's when I decided to start getting on the bike, completely in the interest of, I just need to stay aerobically fit, in the interest of running. So, yeah, no, it was one of the greatest things that has happened to me is getting that injury, because I fell in love with another sport. I had so much fun on the bike, even though it was indoor biking on the trainer. Um, I was just having so much fun falling in love, and being a beginner and getting so much better at another sport. But yeah, initially I just saw it as not cross training necessarily. I was like, okay, well, I want to keep getting better at biking because it's fun, and maybe I'll do bike races and whatever. But it also is just good for running. It's making me better at running, and I'm able to sort of hop in these workouts with the Brooks Beasts on very little mileage and very low workouts, and I still feel really strong. Um, so I wasn't even thinking about triathlon then. It was still, I'm just gonna bike a lot, and I trust that it will help my running while I slowly come back from this really bad injury.
Yeah, definitely. And as you kind of mentioned there, it was definitely, in a sense, in terms of your career path, it was definitely a good thing. When, you mentioned there, you start falling in love with the bike. When did it become apparent to you that you were gonna make the transition to triathlon, kind of like after running your entire life? It must have been hard to kind of just, you know, kind of realize that you really do like the bike, and you're gonna get into the swimming, and you already have the running there. So kind of was it a hard transition, and kind of, having to say to yourself, right, I'm gonna make this move, or was it smooth sailing that you were just excited to get into the triathlete work?
No, so initially I was pushing it off, because I felt that I would be giving up on distance running, and that was still my singular focus. But I would see, the honestly, the main example that I use is I kept seeing Morgan Pearson. He was started training as a triathlete, and then every time he'd hop into a running race, he would do it pretty rarely, but he would just win. He'd just keep
Yeah.
winning. So he was continuing to get better at running off of triathlon training, and I was sort of seeing the same effects from the bike, that I felt that I could pursue it and I would still be getting better at running. And then again, I just started to feel like my ceiling in the sport of triathlon was way bigger than running, because I was discovering this talent on the bike, where I was, doing power numbers that I didn't think most runners would be able to just, get on the bike and do. I thought it was a little bit of a legitimate talent, rather than just running fitness. So I thought that a sport where I can run and bike would raise my ceiling versus just running, because I'm better at biking than most runners are. So it seemed like a sort of a natural third discipline to bring in the swimming. Which is, that's the toughest of the three thus far, because going to the bike from running, it's still just it's very similar, and it's a very similar type of pain. There are a lot of differences, but swimming is completely different, I'm discovering. But I still feel that it will make me a better runner. And again, I still think that my ceiling, even if I'm not as good of a swimmer as I am a biker, I think that my ceiling in the sport of triathlon is higher. So I was a bit standoffish at first, but once I basically saw Morgan, continuing to improve, it made the decision to make the switch a lot easier.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And kind of seeing that you have that natural talent early on and still being able to do a sport you love running within a triathlon is obviously kind of a no brainer at the end of the day. And you've so far seeing your Instagram post, you're currently undefeated in the triathlon. I know you mentioned earlier that it was kind of just a small little race, but did that kind of boost your morale in a sense that off kind of basic, foundation training in a way, and only getting recently into the sport? And again, I remember you mentioned that like your bike, weighs a lot more than the professionals or standard triathletes bike would. I remember you mentioned it was your granddad, no, your great uncle's bike. He
Yeah.
handed it down to you, but still kind of being in the situation you are and still being able to come out with a win in the first triathlete you compete in must have been really nice and must have given you a really good boost in confidence.
I actually wouldn't say it boosted my confidence all that much. I definitely went in there not expecting to win, but I was pretty certain that I was going to win, just because I didn't think, again, it's completely local. So I would have been very surprised if I went in there and didn't have the fastest bike and run split. And so it would have required someone to be such a good swimmer that I'm not able to catch them on the last, 2/3 of the race. So I came out of the water in third, which if it's a pro race right now, I'd be coming out of the water in last by more than a minute. So just sort of like, once I came out of the water, I was like, okay, well, this is the quality of the field. It really is just a local triathlon. There's no reason I shouldn't win this, and I kind of had that mindset for the rest of the race. I caught the leader on the bike pretty quick, and then as soon as we got to the run, I figured it was a done deal. But it is, it's, if you are coming to running from a different sport and you just sign up for a local road race, it's still nice to win it. And if you just go in and win your local road race, your first time in the sport, like it's pretty good. It's like, uh, depending on the level of competition, it wasn't like there was nobody here. The guy who actually came in second in the triathlon that I did has gone, low 9 hours for an Ironman, which is it's not like a pro level time, but that's a pretty good age grouper time. So, he wasn't a slouch. And I kind of imagine that he went in there thinking he was going to win. So again, if I want to be a pro in this sport, I definitely, it's good that I won that race. It's not necessarily a surprise. But I don't want to, I'm not going to rest on my laurels, at all, pretty much, because it was just a local triathlon that I went in there, um, thinking I should win if all went well.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. But as you said, getting a win at the end of the day is always really nice, no matter the competition. Like even if it's you have no competition and you're doing a time trial, even just finishing that feels nice at the end of the day. So definitely, definitely would feel nice. Kind of just to wrap things up here now. Kind of jumping in a little bit real quick into your YouTube channel. Do what kind of is happening on over there? Are you documenting your triathlon training? Is it more kind of just everyday vlog stuff? And also, in terms of the growth of it so far, it's been quite rapid, and obviously the quality of the content and the quality of the training that you're doing is really high. But would you kind of, I remember you mentioning that you seen all the grind and the hard work in terms of YouTube. Some like Spencer had to go through. Do you kind of feel privileged in the way you got to meet the people you did to allow you to do the kind of stuff that you're doing now?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was quick growth from the start, just because Spencer was bumping it, and I had his audience coming over right away, and then it sort of slowed down when I was more on my own. And then yeah, now I'm out here with Lionel Sanders, the biggest triathlon YouTuber out there, and so I get a bump from him. So I don't think people would come and watch if they didn't find it interesting. I have to give myself some
Definitely.
credit there. But people wouldn't even know who I was if not for those two. So I definitely am thankful to them for giving me the exposure, and helping it grow as fast as it has. In terms of what the content is, versus daily vlog, I guess I would like to vlog more than I do. Most of my focus is goes to training, and a lot of time, if I'm on the bike or I'm running or in the pool, it's hard to think of the best way to film things. So it kind of has, right now I'm in sort of a one video a week with a couple different sessions in it. I'm working on, making a couple new beats for every video. And then Johnny takes care of most of the editing, and he does such a phenomenal job with it. So, I think of it as, I guess it's like a bit of a training journal for me to look back on, and see, and for other people to look back on and see what I was doing at different points in my career. And I don't know what sort of content I'll be putting out in the future. It's definitely subject to change. And I would like to be in a position to always be putting out more content. I would love to upload, pretty much 4 or 5 times a week versus the 1 to 2 that I have been doing. But it's just tough to sort of get the process down.
Yeah, definitely, and kind of being a triathlete as well. It's not like you can get up early in the morning and get one run in, and then spend the rest of the day doing different things like editing a video. You have 2-3 sessions a day, maybe even a gym session or on top of that as well, and then obviously just general life stuff. So it can definitely, I'd say, it would be definitely hard to fit the time in to also do recording and your beats and little bits of your editing. So yeah, definitely, hopefully in the future we can see those 4 to 5 videos, maybe even a week would be great to see, and definitely would grow your channel from your own grind perspective, and not just getting the help from people like Spencer. So kind of it'd be more refreshing in a way, kind of seeing you. Obviously, as you said, you still have to record the videos, and people wouldn't be watching you if you weren't interested, but kind of just seeing the growth through all the content you're putting out would definitely be good to see.
Yeah, no, I would love to see that as well. And Johnny has a full-time job. We're working on getting him to take my path and quit it one of these days, but he's not quite as bullish on that as I was. So we have to figure out how can we get him enough income that he feels comfortable basically full-time filming and editing. But yeah, that's going to be a while. But once we're there, then it's I would love to have well, Johnny, but just to have another person to help me just pretty much film everything and have filming and editing be their full-time job. I would love to be able to have enough income to pay someone, to have that be their life.
Yeah, 100%. Fingers crossed. Anyway, you can get there, and we can
Yeah.
see some amazing, a lot more amazing content over on your channel. All links are down in the description, so make sure to head over, even if that will make any difference. Even if it's one subscriber, it'd be really good to see. Just the final question, the question to close out the podcast. Obviously, you have a lot of things going for you at the moment in terms of triathlon training and YouTube, and a lot more. Just like you're creating your beats as well. In terms of, I know it's a bit of a nasty question, but goals for the future, kind of what you thinking. It can be short term, it can be long term, it can be YouTube, it can be your triathlon. Kind of, where do you want to see yourself? In the future.
I don't know if it's a bit of a boring answer, but I'm not really thinking about the future much at all. And I feel uh, I'm extremely rooted in the present, and my whole mindset is that I'm just going to focus on what I can do today. Whether that's training or whether that's sort of creating content for YouTube or other platforms. And I have no control over the future. And I think if I give you some sort of legitimate answer, a concrete answer of what I want to see in the future, I just think back about what I would have said last year, and it would have been nothing like what I'm actually doing
Yeah.
now. And I'm so happy that where I am now, with all the twists and turns, is where I am. And I have no idea where the future is going to take me and what doors will open. So I'm just going to focus on today, and the future will be what it is. And you and I will both find out together.
Definitely, definitely, and I feel like that is more of an exciting answer than a boring answer. Kind of, not knowing and not even thinking about what will happen in the future, and then when it happens, it'll be more of a surprise. So that's no, that's really cool, and that's a really good answer. Ari, I really appreciate you taking the time and coming on the podcast. We had a really great conversation, diving a little bit deeper than what was maybe on the Athlete Special YouTube channel and over on your YouTube channel, to get you to know you a little bit more, which is really great. So I really appreciate you coming on and having a chat.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. And I want to say, when you DM'd me, I had never seen the podcast before. And so how old are you?
I just went 17 there on Wednesday. Or no, sorry, Sunday just gone.
Oh
Sunday
man.
just gone.
All right. Well, happy late birthday. And I love what you're doing, and I hope you keep doing this podcast for years to come. Whatever is motivating you to do it right now, keep holding on to that. And I love what you're doing. So thank you for having me on.
No problem. Thanks, John. I really do appreciate that. Anytime, I'd love to have you back on. If you win any big races or anything else comes up in the future, just give me a text. Say I want to spread this around, and I'll be more than happy to have you back on. I'm sure everyone watching or listening at home would be as well.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to my second appearance.
Definitely. And for anyone listening and watching at home, I really appreciate it, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.
Just let you go today. I just let you out of my mind. Just let you fly out of my thoughts. Just let you go today. Love doesn't hold on at all. Love isn't something you keep. Love sets you free. Love lets you breathe. I just let you go today. You tugged at my heartstrings. I tried to move on, never expecting a feeling so strong. My heart wouldn't listen. My head said let go. My heart was breaking. I wanted you so. Just let you go today. I just let you out of my mind. Just let you fly out of my thoughts. I just let you go today. Holding on just means more and more pain. Wondering if I'll ever see you again. Holding on won't help. When will I learn? It's just a fool's game. It's just in vain. Just let you go today. I just let you out of my mind. Just let you fly out of my thoughts. I just let you go today. Wishing you well now is all I can do. Hoping that life is good to you. Praying that you have peace in your world. Wishing you well in all that you do. Just let you go today. I just let you out of my mind. Just let you fly out of my thoughts. Just let you go today. Just let you go